Mike Norvell gets a visit from a few friends this Saturday, and we will check out Florida State football as it stands right now. Get that frown off your face. We'll see if we can possibly do something about that over the next 60. Florida State Live right here at the Voice of College Football. It's a Wednesday. It's 6 p.m. Eastern Time, so that should already click. George is here from the Renegade Report. George, what's going on today?
I'll do my best to try to put a smile on people's faces, but I don't know if even I can spin a yarn that good. It's not a real happy time. There's some, the real Seminole fans out there. They're gonna always be there. They've been here before. They know what's coming on the other end of it. But yeah, the standard is the standard is kind of something you constantly hear around the program. Florida State, 14 years with Bobby, finishing in the top 5, all the things, all the national title appearances. I mean, you were 13-0 last year. You won the ACC, and then everything happened after it. This year's been a pretty big hangover thus far. You start 0-2. You've had 2 ACC games in a row to start the year of teams that were middling to lower ACC teams, last year, but not just that, kind of perennially. Teams that don't recruit anywhere in your kind of stratosphere, and you go out on the field and kind of get blown off the ball on both sides. We've talked about it all, the preseason prognostications, everything we talked about. We heard from the coaching staff, from people that were at practices, Nick Saban, Pete Thamel, Jim Nagy at the Senior Bowl. You go up and down the list, the different mock projections and things of that nature. You take Pat Payton, for example. 18 to 22 is the range. I've seen him in several mock drafts all off season. He has not played like a first round defensive end. Interior, Daryl Jackson, a lot of hoopla from him. Joshua Farmer, who has really played better and better and was a beast towards the end of last year, has not looked anything like that thus far. On the other side, you bring in Marvin Jones Jr., and he's getting better. You can see him starting to get better in the defense and what could possibly be there. But you lose 2 linebackers, and Kalen DeLoach and Tatum Bethune. That has been a complete. It's like you lost the heart and soul of this defense. Obviously you can't have the defensive line going back, getting knocked back 2 or 3 yards, but also when your linebackers aren't hitting the right gaps and you can't stop the run, no matter how many people you commit to it, that makes for a really tough football game. And people are upset. How could this coaching staff get fooled, all these things of that nature? Like, there's more basic problems than worrying about playing out to your star rating or the talent level of this team. They're just not playing football together. Like, you could go out and lose to a D2 school, and that's tough to ever say about a Florida State team. They could also beat them by 40 points, but they're just not getting it together. Like, it doesn't matter who the opponent is. It could be coaches out there in sweats just standing, where they're supposed to be in the defense, and it feels like they throw picks and things of that nature. They just got to get some confidence going, and some leaders have to step up, and they've got to somehow get to play together. But thus far, it's been really tough. A quarterback has to be a big-time leader for the offense. DJU has not been that thus far, has not kind of garnered any kind of rhythm or anything with his wide receivers. He had a stretch with 30 passes thrown. He was 36%. And that last game against Boston College. So yeah, been a really tough start to the season. But with all that said, it's not the end of the world. Myron Charles decommits. Javian Hilson decommits too. Your top defensive line recruits. I think kind of the beginning of the season obviously it's on Mike Norvell's head. He's going to take full responsibility, but deeper than that, a lot of it's going to be with assistant coaches. I think these kids get that too. I think there's going to be some changes at the end of the season. So the rest of the season really becomes like, when do you just snap your fingers and go for full youth movement? How long do you spend on trying to get DJU to win over his teammates and get in rhythm and all those things? How quick do you go to Brock Glenn? That's the big hot question. A lot of the fan base wants to see him start again against Memphis. I wouldn't hate it. I want to see him at least play some, but I guess that's a pretty good diatribe. And if you have any questions or anything you're wondering, as somebody who isn't a Florida State fan, I guess we can go there with it.
Folks, leave your comments and questions there in the chat. We talk Florida State football each and every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern time. So make this a stop on your college football calendar each week and support George at the Renegade Report. You see the ID right there on the banner. So it's easy to find right here on YouTube, the Renegade Report. Our buddy Jackson will probably, part of our team here at the Voice of College Football, drop that link in the chat as well. So it's only just a click away. Well, I'm going to start with this one. You guys, when I say you guys, I mean you, Chris Frazier, James Coleman, have dissected this for weeks and weeks and weeks, for hours on end. I made the comment the last time we got together that I would go through each position group, each position, each player, and then evaluate, okay, how much can they help us go forward versus their time left in the program versus who's behind them that could possibly need a look, and go through that starting at quarterback and through every position. So has there been any rumblings beyond what just people are talking about, fans and media, anything that gives any indication that there have been any changes in playing time or any changes on the depth chart?
Yeah, very minute changes. There hasn't been anything shocking. DJU, from all reports, has been the best quarterback at practice, like he has been. There's been a few things. I'm trying to think of any specific things that changed this week on the depth chart, but really just an or dropped here, an or drop there. For example, Jeremiah Byers, they dropped the or off of him at right tackle, but then, he was out last week. He was injured. He remains the starting right tackle on the latest depth chart. So I don't know if he's back healthy or what the deal is there. I don't know if maybe one of the reports came from practice today. But yeah, no, mainly the same starters everywhere. Juice, the freshman linebacker, and the redshirt freshman, I guess, linebacker, Blake. They both have passed up Omar Graham Jr. on the depth chart. So that's been the biggest kind of change, I guess, of the season. But for the most part, everybody's it's not like the backups have came in and set it on fire either. But you start to really want to look at the youth movement going forward. Like quarterback, obviously, is a big one. Hakeem Williams has been injured. So there's a bright spot. If you want to put a smile on Mike Norvell, fully expects him to play against Memphis. So you're finally going to get to see him out there. And when you look at that X wide receiver spot, you've got Kentron Portier, Malik Benson, and now Hakeem Williams. It doesn't make sense to me to have your top three wide receivers, in my opinion, all on one side. I'm guessing they'll bring Hakeem over to the Z at some point. But on the other side, they've got, I believe, Wayne McCoy, Deuce Spann, and somebody else. It's just like, it's crazy how like one side has it. So I really want to see Hakeem Williams and Kentron Portier on the field as much as possible. I love Malik Benson as well. But that's another reason you want to possibly get Brock Glenn in there, because I just don't see how DJU is ever really going to hook up with Malik Benson. Like, even if DJU gets it going, just from what I've seen the first two games and kind of his playing style, it's going to be hard for him to make the kind of throws that Malik Benson needs to make, the NFL throws he needs to make kind of with his skill set. So here comes big game James Coleman. Very interested to hear his opinions and all this stuff. But yeah, try to find bright spots, and the youngin at linebacker Blake Nicholson has been a super bright spot, and also Juice. What's up, James?
What's going on, guys?
Not too much. Good to see you. This is James Coleman, everyone. Den Media Group. We will have the banners up and the information there in the chat where to find James, and we will, of course, track his work. So again, keep your eyes open there in the chat. Comments, questions are welcome. All right, James, you've been in situations, not too many, because you won most of your games at Florida State. If we go back to 2002 through 2005, it was a pretty good run for the Seminoles while you were there. So not too many of these kind of situations, and I'd have to go back and look at year by year. So I'm going to ask you, without me looking back year to year, when is the time that you felt, not just for yourself, but for the rest of the locker room, that there was the most frustration or the most just the vibe was not what it needed to be to run with your hair on fire and hit people on Saturday?
I'd say my freshman and my senior year were 2 years where we had to figure it out. We didn't lose early like this team is losing, but we did lose some games and we had a lot of expectations. I mean, if anybody remembers, ESPN used to do this thing called the season. And we were tasked in 02. I've actually got a couple clips of me as a freshman. It looks weird, like seeing something over 20 years ago, but it was the year after 9/11. We had Let's Roll was our slogan for the year. And if anybody who doesn't know, obviously today's 9/11. Yeah, so it's crazy. The plane that flew into the Pentagon, those guys, or no, I think it got grounded, excuse me. Somebody shot it down, more than likely. But those guys weren't going to just lay down. They picked up the phone and the guy called his wife and said the last words that he wanted to do, he called her on from the airplane phone. And the last thing that she heard was, okay, like to the guys who decided that they were going to fight, let's roll. And that was our slogan. We had that on all kinds of shirts. We came in and the ESPN told us that if we went to the national championship, it would be a 2-hour special. Bowl game be a 1-hour special. Well, that year, we lost to Notre Dame. We lost to I think we lost to North Carolina State on the road, tough game. We lost 4 games if I remember correctly. 5 with the bowl game. We lost to Georgia in the Sugar Bowl, but that was also the year that Chris Ricks got benched. Then Adrian McPherson had the gambling, and then Chris came back. We beat Florida, but then Chris oversleeps for an exam and he's suspended for the bowl game. So a lot of internal turmoil mixed with us not playing to our ability, mixed with expectations, which, a lot of fans, they talked bad about us too. We just didn't have social media to where fans were they were more distance and all of that stuff. But it was crazy though. And I remember even the seniors going to Coach Bowden to say, hey, we had a quarterback controversy. So it was crazy. My sophomore, junior year, we played a lot better. We were a couple field goals, a couple close games away from playing in the Natty. And then my senior year, we had Wyatt Sexton believe he was Jesus in the middle of the street. And so we started off again with turmoil, and there was a stretch there where we didn't know what was going to go down. And eventually good teams, or I don't even want to say good teams, you are what your record says, but talented teams do typically find themselves. And you kind of can flip it around. And that's when you have to have the seniors, the guys got to talk. We had team meetings. We had all kinds of things. And we got away from it. I don't know what happened my freshman year. I was a youngin'. My senior year, I liken it to we had so many guys with NFL grades that we lost sight of what got us those NFL grades. And we started playing for ourselves as opposed to each other. And playing for each other is what got us to that point. And I think when you watch the games, from a defensive standpoint, they're just not they're playing selfish defense. They're not calling banjo, which is your switch off in man coverage. They're not they're not spilling. Guys are trying to make tackles when their job should be to spill the lineman that's pulling, so that the next guy can come and do it. You see guys playing timid, and there's just no way you can play the game like that. That's defensively. Offensively, I could not diagnose what's going on with DJU. I mean, I've heard people say it, and we didn't need DJU to be Jordan Travis or even what Cam Ward is to Miami, which is kudos to him. We needed DJU to be a competent quarterback and give us that 3-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, which he has not done. And it's not just him. The offensive line, like Darius Washington last game, had one of the worst games that I've ever seen them play. In fact, I would argue two of the calls that DJU looked the worst. Well, it looked bad because one was a turnover and one wasn't a touchdown that should have been a touchdown. If you go back and you look at what happened to the left tackle, you'll get a little bit more insight on that. In fact, the interception DJU got hit. He doesn't get hit. That's probably 6 by 6 to Jalen Brown. He basically had one-on-one. The Boston College defender was beat. He was either going to get a pass interference call or he was going to get a touchdown. And I think there were some other times where it was just misreads and bad football. But those guys obviously know how to play. They just got to go reach inside of them. And that's the frustrating part if I'm Mike. And, I've talked to Coach. He happened to be in Jacksonville on Friday. And the frustrating part is, all you can do is all you can do is call the play and hope for the best. And right now, it ain't even no hope. Like, they just don't look like not just a very well coached football team. They don't look like a team that wants to play for each other. And there's a lot of things that people can go into. They can say it's the new NIL. They can say it's the transfer portal. But the only reason I don't subscribe to that is because there are teams that they've been successful in it before. And there are other teams that have higher NILs and more transfer portal guys, and they're having the success. So to quote Nick Saban, you got to pay the right guys. And right now, it just doesn't look like the guys that we're paying are panning out. And you miss, but I guess in today's landscape, when you miss, it looks really, really bad.
Let me throw a metaphor and a question out there for you, because obviously I didn't get to play at Florida State like you did. Super awesome that you got to join us this week. Like, I was a short order cook for a little bit of time, ended up becoming the manager, like all the way from the dishwasher at like a little 3-star Italian restaurant. Like, there would be nights when I'd go in the kitchen and it would be hell to break. Nothing's coming out right. The tickets are 300 miles, and I could just, everybody back up, let me run this thing, and start calling out orders for people. And the same 6 people will get into a routine all of a sudden, like the dishwasher's throwing clean dishes to the microwave guy, yada, yada. Is it that simple at all? Like, my question is, when you see our defensive line getting blown back 2 and 3 yards, and then you watch, those teams play D2 or lesser teams, whatever, the next week, and it's the opposite. They're getting whipped up front. It's like, I know I've seen it in recent years when these guys came in as second string and third string guys. They're better than that. Like, is it that simple? Do we just need a middle linebacker that can call everything out? Like, is Maurice Smith not binding with the new right guard? Are there issues that, like, is there that kind of solution on the end of the hill? Can folks look forward to that? Or, like, what point is it that you go from youth movement and just you really have to second guess stuff and start talking about, firing coaches before you get to the end of the year and things of that nature?
Well, they're already talking about firing coaches. So
before you get there, that's what I'm saying. I don't have the same connections and things, but like, you best bet it's some changes coming after this year.
Yeah, changes are going to come. They have to. And you have to, even if Florida State makes a run, right? An improbable run, the reality is there's a disconnect, and they're going to have to do some things, not necessarily for X's and O's, but clearly there's a disconnect in recruiting, and they've got to do something different when it comes to that. I can't tell you. I don't have any inside information to tell you. I'm just using common sense and deductive reasoning when it comes to that. But but sometimes things go wrong. Baseball, they call it the yips.
Yeah.
And golf as well. It's just with guys who, because again, some of this stuff doesn't take being elite talent to be able to do. It takes knowing how to throw the football forward. It takes, like, again, to complete a forward pass isn't that hard. Now, if guys aren't getting open, that's a different thing. But, like, a simple corner route should be easy to hit in the end zone. Even with that being said, by my thoughts. But, like, I also blame the wide receiver on that as well. I mean, wide receivers aren't getting open. They aren't making catches. They aren't doing a lot of these different things. And I always tell people, I played for Jeff Bowden, arguably one of the worst offensive coordinators at Florida State. And we put up numbers. And this is what I tell the players when I put the onus on them. When they're like, the plays aren't right. I did this with Tag. I did this under Jimbo. I did this when they were going 3-6 and 5-7. Every offensive play is designed to score, and every defensive play is designed to stop the offense from scoring. It's all about the will and the want-to, and you have to be able to do that. But, I think this is the last week that Mike can truly afford to not really make real drastic changes. And really even in that, he's got to be like, and I hate to say this because I know how hard it is to be in that position, but DJU's got to be on a short rope if he's going to in fact be the starter. If you get in and you have the drive like he had the first drive against Boston College, and I was there when people booed him, which was crazy. Even going back, I haven't been on your show in a while, Mark, but like 14 minutes and 12 seconds to Florida State's, I believe it was 48 seconds is how long we had the ball in the first quarter. And Boston College didn't score. So like you can't have that kind of a disparity and keep that guy in there. You look for a spark. Personally, I would have liked to have seen Brock go in or Luke go in at least before halftime to see if we could get a spark from the team. But all that being said, the game was still well within control, even with 6 minutes left in the fourth. I'm not within control, excuse me, within a range where you can win. You can win ugly, but you can win during that time. But sometimes when it rains, it pours, and you just get into the situation where you don't believe that you can do anything right. Like just look at Murlock. It's very difficult to have 5 drops. To quote my coach, if anything over 2 drops is the quarterback's fault for throwing him the ball. So like we got to get him out of there. But 5 drops in situations is not optimal. I would not continue to give him the ball, but guys got to find ways. I'm glad Mike talked about him in the practice and saying he kind of had a great day catching the ball. But that switch out communicate. It's simple communication on defense. That's really the downside to the defense. There is no communication, which is sad.
So, James, last week when we had the conversation, and I believe you were here for most of it, but at one point it was George and I going back and forth on what could possibly be done. My only remedy to this, from a talent evaluation and effort evaluation standpoint, and who's working well together and all of that, would be if I'm Mark Norvell, I'm sitting down with each position coach and going through each player in the unit. Offensive line coach, bam, we're sitting down. We're looking at every offensive lineman. We're looking at game film. We're looking at everything and saying, okay, offensive line being the most complicated example I'm going to give because you can mix and match and move people around to different places, but saying, okay, what's his performance right now compared to the standard? What options do we have? How much time does he have left in this program? Is this his last season, or is he a redshirt sophomore? So that's going to change my thinking. And then what do we have behind him? What options do we have? And how well is that particular player playing, or those players in the opportunities that they've had? And does it make sense to make a calculated risk to give somebody else a chance?
I mean, all of those things you said are honestly, guys, true. I think the bye week might have came too early, for my liking, but just in time. But that's really what you would, coming off of 2 losses. That's what I'm saying in the bye week. I'm evaluating everything: effort, energy, youth, all of these different things. I'm evaluating, and I'm just saying, like, if you're not getting it done, I got to go with you. There's a saying in coaching, right? If you have 2 players that are even, go with the younger. So if you think Brock, or like if you don't think, I'll use a video game sample. Like, so if DJ used 83 on a video game, right, and Brock's 80, but his throw power and his accuracy are stronger, but some of the other intangibles are better, why would I go? I'm gonna go with the young guy that's going to be able to put the ball in the position in which I needed to be put, and go from there.
Although the old school tendency, of course, is to play the guy with experience and to play the guy with tenure. And I respect that to a certain extent, with some coaches having loyalty to their upperclassmen. So if it's even, they'll typically go with the upperclassmen. That's kind of the old school way to do it, George.
Yeah, I mean, and kind of until you're 0-2, And I think, Mike Norvell has a lot of that. But yeah, at this point, you really have to look at that. And to kind of what James was saying, I agree with him. And you kind of can talk about solutions and different things you have to do. I totally agree with him about Blake. Excuse me, not Blake.
Brock.
Brock. Excuse me, Brock. Because like, if people act like me saying that I want them to let Brock have a shot to start at Memphis means DJ, you can never play again. Like, you have to pack his football up and go home. That isn't what it means. Like, no, like maybe it sparks the team. Maybe it's an absolute disaster. And the first team offense is like saying, Coach, please give DJU another shot. I think we can get this shit together. Maybe that's what needs to happen. Like, that's kind of where I look at it. Personally, looking at the little bit I've seen of Luke, I don't think he's ready to go out there. But if he goes out there and the one play he's really comfortable with is a deep shot and you get it and you get a touchdown, or he just pulls it down or makes a quarterback run and that gives you a spark, I'm for whatever's whatever. But yeah, at some point in time, you have to look, okay, well, this list of guys here, these single-year transfers that hasn't worked out, or 0-2, 0-3, whatever the case may be, when you get to that, it's like, do we play them or the true freshmen or from our best class we've had since we've been here, or the sophomore from the second best class? And that's where I'm at. I definitely want to see those guys. They don't. I'll tell you what. Florida State's media doesn't help them with the media they put out and like the practice clips and stuff. I texted James asking about this one play where they've got Hakeem Williams out there, or not Hakeem Williams, Darius Thomas out there basically as a dummy. So he's pretending like he's playing press man, but he's not doing anything. He's just being passive and letting them drive him down the field. And James is like, this goes on. It's not that. Probably shouldn't put it on the internet, but it's not that big of a deal. But when you see that, and I see those clips going up daily, you see their little, where they go around the corner and they do their solo tackling drills and it doesn't go to the ground. It's a certain kind of, thud, wrap up and stuff. That's exactly what it looks like on the field. AZ Thomas getting driven down the field and not wrapping up. And like, so whether they just need to stop putting them videos up, yada, yada, it's just, it makes a bunch of negativity. I just give you a chance to dispel some of that or explain what I'm seeing. And I know I'm not the only one out there that sees that, who didn't play the DO1 level. And it's just like, those aren't the clips that it looks like the Georgia puts up, but they're hitting a fire hose with that on their punt team. I don't know what that was about, that NFL team. They had a fire hose out there. But anyway.
The Ravens fumble drill. But it's just a lot of things. Again, thank you, son. To quote one of my friends, when you're losing, the hot dogs are extra cold. Everything is a problem. Like when you're losing, it's simple back shoulder throw drills are now. Why are we practicing back shoulder throws when we can't throw forward? And I'm like, guys, it's 24 periods, 24 times 5 gets you about 2.5 hours. You practice different things. Like it doesn't always like you practice catching stuff that you're going to do in the game. But I 100% understand. Florida State's problem isn't even just execution, which that is a big problem of it. It's a physicality thing. I can't drill physicality. Physicality is a mindset. And, I can't go. I can only, like I tell my sons all the time when we play, like, Dad was a good player. Like, I don't know if you are. You got to go out there and play. I can't take on those people for you. Like, again, with Darius Washington has never shown us anything like what he showed us against Boston College. And he's played against some really good D linemen in the last 3 years. If you would have told me he was going to get his ass whooped like that, I would have been like, you're crazy. But it happened. And, maybe that just wasn't his night. Do we put in Lucas, we put in a couple other guys, and they didn't fare as well either. They just were, it was, those guys were on one. And that's unfortunately something that you never want to be able to say as a coach or a player. And I think we need to have, they needed to have some heart to hearts, but again, that's not coaching as much as it is a mentality. And I also think it's something that it's hard, and I think we all discount it, and we still won't know until after next week because he doesn't come back until we play Cal. But everybody talked about Mike Norvell's offense and gave Alex Atkins no credit for when the offense was clicking last year. And is it Alex Atkins? I don't know. But I do know I know when your O-line coach is there, he can possibly make adjustments. He can talk to you a little bit more about what you're doing, maybe get you some technique, some things that you need to fix. But again, at the end of the day, the only thing that I saw was a lack of fortitude in the trenches. And that was more glaring to me than even the quarterback play. I mean, even I saw one play, Maurice Smith. Like, actually, if you go back, I do a breakdown of the games. And I made this joke, and it was a pun intended. And you'll get this, Mark. A lot of people get this if you watch games. I said Black Lives Matter. And the reason why I said Black Lives Matter is if you look at the line of scrimmage on a college football or NFL game, there is a black line. The line of scrimmage, if I kid you not, Georgia Tech's offensive line consistently reestablished the line of scrimmage 1 to 2 yards down the field. That you could do a lot with that. Our line did not reestablish the line of scrimmage. In fact, a lot of times they got pushed back. And that's where the game is played. It's played in the trenches. And, people can talk about our recruiting, high school recruiting, even like guys like Solomon Thomas, who I like. You bring him in, he's not going to be ready next year. Like, you got to be big. You can put a freshman every now and then in a situation, but you can't start 5. You can't start a bunch of 1-year guys. It still never works for you. But we've got to find the 5 guys that don't just look the part, that are tough. They go out there and impose their will and dominate. It's simple. We got dominated in the trenches, and what really stinks is that it wasn't just one person. I think the only guy who I saw play really well consistently would be Richie Leonard. TJ Ferguson didn't play that bad from the times that I noticed them, but like for the most part, guys picked a play where they got destroyed, and that messes up an offense too.
Appreciate you all being here at the Voice for College Football. It's a Wednesday, therefore we're talking Florida State football with all of you, and it's a busy Wednesday. Each week it gets busier all the time at the Voice of College Football. We've added a Notre Dame show. That's with myself and Brian Driscoll from Irish Breakdown. That's at 8 o'clock Eastern time tonight. So we've added that to the lineup, and we've added an Ole Miss live show with myself and Leanne Herring from the Rebel Walk, and that's on Tuesday at 2. We're doing our first one coming up on a Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern time. James, what's going on at Den Media Group?
Not much. Today was Wednesday. We gave away a pair of tickets to the Memphis game to our listeners every Wednesday of a home game. So next week we'll be giving away a pair of tickets to the Cal game on our Wednesday show. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Big Games BS. We do 9:30. We will do a Memphis breakdown. What we should do, don't know if we will do, but what we should do against Memphis to have success. I don't believe in doing the other opponent's work to show them how to beat Florida State. That's not my cup of tea. But I think I do that. We have our Gator Bowl shows, and we have Mandarin University, a really good school here in Jacksonville, that's putting out a ton of Division I talent. 2 5-stars and a 4-star quarterback in this class, and numerous 4-stars and 3-stars scattered throughout the roster, where you're going to see updates about that school as well. So we're about 800 subs away from 7,000. Once we get to 7,000 subs, we'll give away $500 live on the show. We'll also give away $200 to a member, as well as the amount of likes to a member. And for all members, we have our college football pick'em and pigskin, and our NFL pick'em, where you can win $50 a week if you're a $3.99 member or higher. You can win that each week. We do it. We've had guys split the college football pick'em twice. We got some really good. I got to start looking at some of these people. They're pretty damn good. Like, I might want to do a parlay, a money line parlay based upon their picks. I stink. I don't know what's going on, but they've done a real. We had a
Okay,
couple guys go undefeated, so I personally am stinking it up right now.
Okay, unless they're getting their intel from somebody else, James. Just give it some time. Give it some time. We're only 1 or 2 weeks in.
Yeah, I'm clearly trying to go based upon logic and past performance. I think one of the ladies that watches the show, I think she just picks which mascot she thinks prettier, and she's having way more success than I am. So, like, that seems to work.
Well, guys, I got to say, now that you brought up the betting angle, time to throw this out. So give me a minute here. Everybody listen up. College football is even more exciting with some action on the line. And the games are even better when you're cashing in. And the Voice of College Football is the place to be to get the greatest value. Let's start with my picks. 75% against the money line, 58% against the spread. I've got a 40-year track record. In fact, in 2023, at $100 played per game, you would have netted over $9,300. And guess what? I'm just the warm-up act. Steve Merrill, our ace in the hole, show stopper from Wager Talk. 6 years with the Voice of College Football, over 30 years in the industry. Steve gives us analysis on all the big games, but you can't miss Steve's weekly under-the-radar pick, which went 21-5 against the spread the last 2 seasons. I repeat, 21-5 against the spread. You also get picks from some of our top analysts here at the Voice of College Football, including Steve Dace and Matt Zemek. Become a YouTube channel member or Patreon member for just $99 per month. Go to the main channel on YouTube, click join, and select the betting tier. Do the same thing on Patreon. Make 2024 a winner now. So our guy, Steve Merrill from Wager Talk, yeah, I produced that commercial before the season. He was 21-5 against the spread on his one pick that he gives to us every week, under the radar selection. It's exclusive here. Hit the first 2 weeks. So 23-5, everyone, now for our guy, Steve Merrill. George, what's going on at the Renegade Report?
Apparently, we need to just be taking this YouTube money every time we get and just putting it on your guys' picks there, and we'll be good at the end of the season. We'll be able to buy some new equipment and all kind of good stuff. But no, also shout out to another one of those Mandarin guys, Dalen Lewis. He just got officially a 3-star, so he got in the door there at the 247 composite. I wouldn't be surprised with some of the hits he's putting on tape the first couple weeks if he doesn't climb up towards maybe like an 89 and fight for a 4-star before it's all said and done. So great seeing him have success and all those guys over there. But yeah, we're just same as usual. We didn't do much over the bye week. Our schedule got all out of whack. Everybody send prayers Jen's way as she recovers from an operation she had last week. Everything went great with that. But we're back to kind of normal schedule now. Tuesdays, Fridays, and Sundays around 7 Eastern. We do the Renegade Rundown. And then Mondays at 9:15 Eastern, we'll start back next week with the Renegade Roast and just doing this thing. We've been doing some short stuff during the weeks, like 10, 15-minute videos as well. Didn't do anything this week again with the bye week. There's only so much to talk about with having not played anybody in the situation we're in. Kind of like, as James alluded to, there's only so much we can talk to and break it down. We're not on the team. Like, we just these guys need to get out there and make something happen. So y'all get over to my channel, make something happen, hit subscribe. I'm trying to get to 3,000 subscribers, a couple hundred away from that. And yeah, that's about it, man.
If you guys want picks, just let me know. I'll send them your way. They're completely free. That would be about the least I could do for everything you've done for me, is just give you my selections and the rest of them there. So just let me know on that one. James, George alluded to this early in the show, hit upon the 2 commits that were lost this week. I know, well, I don't know, because you've got connections. Maybe you do know. We can conjecture that it's just simply they're 0-2, and I can play just about anywhere. I can go to X, Y, and Z. Therefore, it looks like it's going better there, so I'm going to decommit. Or there's some kind of perception of what's going on behind the scenes that contributes to the 0-2 that these commits aren't real happy about.
I'm going to be honest with you. It's a combination of a lot of different things. And I did this on my show, and this will give you some good clicks and, banter. And, a lot of people go back and forth. I've never been a hater. If you're good, you're good. If you're not, you're not. What I will say is I kudos to Auburn, Miami, I'd say Florida as well. Not their fan base. Not this is not no knock on their fan because their fan bases follow suit, but they do a very good job of crafting the narrative. Regardless of the situation, it makes it feel like everything is in control, even if they're not having coaches. And there's always a good positive spin that comes out of these different things. All we've seen, in particular, this last offseason, it started before that, but I get it. It starts with Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter was committed, and his decommitment was very loud. Now, the minute we get any type of big prospect, it's always, when are you going to decommit? When are you going to decommit? We went from talking about how we don't spend any money in the transfer portal to now we're having articles about how we spend $13 million in the transfer portal. And it's not done right without any true sources or anything of that nature. I say these things to say that it's got to be that. It's got to be the perception, and the perception is crafted by the media and what people read. In particular, your own media, your own beat. George made the joke about our drills. They show up the worst drills. I don't, as a football guy, I don't even know why you're showing that. There's nothing cool about some of those drills. They're mundane, everyday things, but they are things that, without context, are just going to get you trolled and hammered. And this is, regardless of what they say, it's a click-based, click-driven business, and negativity sells, trolling sells. But why do you ask every commit? Like, why has Solomon Thomas been asked 20 times since he's been committed to Florida State? Are you committed? Are you going to go
lost the game? Sorry to talk over you.
Started before that.
Way before the
Tramel Jones literally had guys on campus, and Tramel, to the point where he asked me, Coach, can you be there when I'm getting interviewed? Do I have to interview with these guys? Asking him every week, are you still committed? When are you decommitting? Are you going to Florida? Are you going to this? And what ends up happening is these guys are like, well, damn, do they even want me here? Why are they keep asking me this? And only our beat does that. And how do they make their money? They make their money. I've even asked, is it annoying? And they say yes. And the reason why I say it can't just be the losses, we went 13-1 last year. And you still are struggling to recruit. So I believe it's some guys just aren't really good at the way recruiting is going now. I don't know. I can't speak, and I won't speak intelligently on if we're overpaying or not overpaying with name, image, and likeness due to our NIL collective. The reason why it's technically illegal to even know what your NIL deal is until you sign. So I don't want to. What I don't know, I don't have to be accountable for. And even if I did know, I probably wouldn't tell people. But it's getting lost because Auburn just lost the Cal, right? And there's still national and local articles about how they're going to make a run to have the number one class if they continue to land some of the people that they want. Texas, I understand Texas being good. Texas has always recruited well. Miami has always recruited well. Like, these other places have recruited well. Florida recruits well because they have all of these they have these off-field staffers. I even laid out a plan of what I think Mike should do in order to get that thing back up on par, but I can't tell you, but I do know the position coaches that are the most shaky are the ones that lost their recruits. And when Jimbo put his brown jacket on, we didn't have this. We didn't have these problems. But he was doing NIL deals probably before NIL was even around. But he had closers, and closers closed. Old man Bobby Bowden, the last week of signing day, always closed strong. We always jumped ahead of everybody because they had a better idea in post. I think they just got to do it. From having seen their recruiting a little bit in some areas, I think they need some people to give them better intel so that they can know when they're – what does that song say? Know when to hold them, when to fold them.
There is no, like, Zach Smith in his day when he was at Ohio Smith, Heartline, what he's got going on now. Name your, like, young guy who's on top of recruiting. Brewster for a hot minute here with getting things done for Jimbo. Like, there is no guy like that. Surtain on the defense feels like it. And it's like what I always say is like I love it, Odell, I love Papuchis, I love what both of them have done. But it's like you've got two of the same coach you up, diamonds in the rough. Like somebody, like they've got to have that guy that's going to go out here and get guys. Before we run out of time, he was talking earlier about like at the end of the day, this strategy of bringing guys through the portal mixed with what we've recruited, it's worked out. Now it doesn't. So now it's like you need to recruit these 5-star D linemen, D ends, offensive tackles year after year, so that when you go into this year, you have some sophomores and some, redshirt freshmen and things that are just beasts, be it a Bain or whoever that name is. Like they don't have to come in and be impact freshmen right off the bat and be starters. But like 5 stars, those true freak DNs and defensive tackles and things of that nature, like they're not going to just transfer out of Florida State or Ohio State because they don't get quote unquote snaps their freshman year. It's going to take till that freshman, sophomore, and junior year. Certain positions, whatever, you can go get this or that every year, but there's a certain amount of specific positions: defensive end, defensive tackle, offensive tackle. Like you just got to get those guys. And even our classes that are, well, technically we're ahead of Miami and one behind Florida in the composite, and that's just high school without transfers having anything to do with it. So it's not like it's been terrible. But to his point, the coaches that have fallen down on the job this year, whatever the case may be, whatever you want to call it, just the players or the coaches, D-line, linebacker, D-tackle, like that's where we're struggling in recruiting. That's where the struggling is on the field. So, like, yeah, we can always go and get things to supplement out of the portal. We can get guys, Jared Verse for 2 years, Jermaine for 1. But you still have to have Florida State top guys coming in out of high school at those 3 positions, and also linebackers as well. Like, you don't have to get a ton of them, but in 5 years, you got to get more than Blake Nicholson. Like, and Blake Nicholson's great. It's not like, is it any mistake that the one true kind of high 4-star linebacker we brought in is showing out now and is going to be a key part of the defense? I don't think so. But sorry, there's a little rant for you.
Love it. That's why we've got you here. These two make it roll for us each and every week. We also appreciate when Chris Frazier from Spearatics can join us and we get the whole crew together. But it's Wednesday, folks, 6 p.m. Eastern time, Florida State Live. Make it on back next week. Bring a friend or 2 or 50. In the meantime, Den Media Group with James and the Renegade Report, of course, with George. You can catch also George after the ball game against Memphis. What time is the Memphis game?
That is a good question. Have they even announced it yet?
Noon.
Okay.
And Cal is 7 p.m. next week. Noon game start.
Hopefully we get a win. Hopefully that's a fun post-game show. Been pretty pretty rough the first 2 go around.
Well,
we
I'm
lived
sure
a
you
blessed
guys
life last year.
I'm sure you guys have already reviewed the schedule, but where it at one point a couple of weeks before the season, I was looking at the schedule, trying to look for who could give them some issues. Now I'm looking at, wow, these are
Georgia Tech
toss-ups.
off the ball. So it's like we watched what they did. James talked about what they did to us, and I watched Syracuse do what they did to us to them. And go look up their ratings. That dude came in fresh from Georgia. These different teams. We didn't get to talk about this. We'll talk about it next time. But this is also like a different game. Like you go back to the fundamentals always, but college football has changed a lot in the past 2 years and what you can do in an off season to get good or get bad real freaking fast.
The biggest thing is you just got to hit in the portal. And I'm going to be, again, I told one of my friends that Cam Ward hit. Martinez hit.
Yep.
The defensive tackle or DN that Miami got, I believe, from Michigan, from like a couple of those guys, they hit. That you can't hate on it. Like they, on top of them recruiting very well on the offensive line and developing that with some wide receivers, they hit. When the 2 years Mike Norvell had, he hit. Right now, you haven't hit on DJU. You haven't hit on the running back on Roydell Williams. You haven't hit on the you haven't hit with Jackson. So just think about the 3 levels: quarterback, D tackle, quarterback, D line, running back. That I just talked about with Miami. Big hits, all very good impact players. You can see the excitement, even though I'd argue, if you go back a year to the date, you would see them praising TVD the exact same way they're praising Cam Ward. Cam Ward had a 5-touchdown performance against Texas A&M, a much better team than the University of Florida, until October 6th, I believe, they were praising him until then. Actually, no, they were praising him until the game before Georgia Tech, but whatever. My point in all of that is when you hit, you hit. When you don't hit, you don't hit. But you got to be able to cut bait. And that's what Mike has to figure out. What's the best situation for him? You got to be able to cut bait. And they haven't done well. But I really think it's got to be some of those guys and their recruiting strategy has to get updated. It works for portal guys for the most part, but it doesn't work for high school. And you got to find a way to make it work for both.
And like, is it going to cease to work? Like when we think about portal guys, these are guys who were part of that last generation in my mind. Like it is a new mind of players. And also 2-3 years ago, everybody wasn't hitting the portal like they are now. Like we really kind of went in and scooped some guys. We got our ass busted for Skirton this year and several other guys that we just missed on. And if Skirton was here, who knows what the season is right now from how he's looked on the field. And but yeah, great conversation. I know it's like a Miami time. Like I feel like this might be the best conversation I've had about it since it happened. So there's that. Hopefully Memphis goes and lays down when they see the Florida State helmet, and we can get these guys some confidence. Either that or they actually figure it out.
I'm expecting a pretty good game myself, but haven't really looked at it at this point. But we will, and you'll get my picks, everyone, if you want them. George, appreciate you being here as always. And again, join George every day at the Renegade Report and after the ball game here at the Voice of College Football. James, thanks for making time. Know your schedule is crazy, so thanks for being here.
No problem. Appreciate you.